Wedding planning should feel personal, not automated. Simply Eloped keeps it human, crafting over 14,000 one-of-a-kind ceremonies across 37 incredible U.S. locations. They handle the vendors, permits, timelines, all of it. You get your marriage license, they take on the chaos. Create your kind of wedding at simplyeloped.com. Philly has a big year ahead with major events coming to town, like FIFA World Cup, the MLB All-Star Game, and celebrations for America's semiquincentennial. And big events means more tourists. And more tourists means a busier airport. But PHL, Philadelphia International Airport, was ranked dead last in a customer satisfaction survey for similar-sized airports. So we wanted to know, is PHL Airport really as bad as they say? And if so, how are we making sure we're ready for the influx of travelers? It's Monday, December 22nd. I'm Trenae Nuri. Let's fly, Philly. Siani, we started talking about our airport a couple months back when PHL came in last place in J.D. Power's Traveler Satisfaction Survey. It was the 5th year in a row that PHL came in last place out of 27 airports. We weren't so sure, though, because we've had different experience when we travel in and out of PHL. So you did your own survey of our listeners and readers to hear what they thought. So what did they tell you? And let's start with the haters.
Oh, Philly had a lot to say on this topic. You guys were quick when it came to responses when I asked how you felt about the airport. One of the biggest issues people had that I was kind of in agreement with was cleanliness.
Okay.
LHR wrote in saying, "My biggest complaint about PHL Airport is the absolute filth that is pervasive almost everywhere. Even in the renovated restrooms, you find filth. Start with the basics. Keep it clean. It's truly disgusting and an embarrassment. Until airport management can get this one basic thing right, it will never get better."
Yikes. What do you think? You think the terminals are dirty? You think the bathrooms are dirty?
I mean, LHR went in a little harder than I probably would have. I do think the restrooms are probably the worst. And I think that is common for any public restroom, especially with how many people are coming in and out of this airport. But it gets pretty bad, and you think it's the first time people are outside.
I mean, I'm thinking, okay, a dirty terminal. I mean, let's compare PHL to a Greyhound station. You know what I mean? I'll definitely pick the airport over that.
Oh, absolutely. That's when we get that Greyhound terminal back, we need to learn some lessons from last time. Maybe they can pick up some lessons from PHL.
And also, I mean, you got to think about it. There are more than 30 million travelers passing through the airport every year. So maybe this person caught the bathroom at a wrong time when it was about to get cleaned. So I don't know. But yeah, maybe having more workers stay more consistent with the cleanliness would be good.
And it's not just cleanliness people have issue with, although that's one of the biggest things. Yakina from the Philly suburbs said that the terminals are dirty, the entire airport is outdated, some outlets at the terminals don't work, and they don't have enough electronic device charging stations. The bathrooms specifically are dirty and outdated. They aren't cleaned regularly. Water bugs on the ground floor near baggage claim, and good customer service is non-existent.
Okay, that's a lot. What about the good stuff, though, Siani? What did people like about PHL?
One thing that came up was getting through airport security can be pretty quick compared to other airports. Mr. G from Northern Liberty said, in comparison, if you go to Heathrow Airport in London, it took them 30 minutes to get to the gate after entering the building, and described it like an Escher drawing, which is very you are getting lost in that picture, and you are getting lost at some of these larger airports in a way that Mr. G wasn't describing with PHL, and found it kind of in the middle of the pack where you'd get your steps in, but you'd at least get to your gate in a relatively good time.
Yeah, I feel like PHL is a little easier to get in and out of than like Newark or Orlando or even Atlanta. Like larger, maybe airports, just because there's more volume of people. Although we have our international terminals and things like that, but I feel like I think it's pretty manageable.
I would say so. I've had experiences at Miami's airport where I've gone mostly for layovers and having to switch gates and terminals and trying to get from point A to point B. It's been very confusing, and you're rushing to get to the other side in time, where I feel like you can get across the different terminals in fairly good time without it getting too confusing at PHL.
Yeah. And I mean, there are long lines during like the holidays or if there's like a bad storm. Um, and those tend to wrap around like that overpass area. I think we all kind of know that if we had that experience. But the lines do seem to move fast compared to like other airports.
Yeah, I'm definitely the person where I'm at the airport several hours early for this reason. To the
Yeah.
point I joke I'm there to fuel up the plane while I'm there because that's how early I am. But one, it helps, my mental state knowing that I am not trying to get through the plane doors like 5 minutes before it closes. But most of the time, the TSA experience has been pretty good. Even just a few days after the federal shutdown in November, I had a flight and it was super smooth. That was probably my quickest TSA experience ever. And, no one was having an attitude. Everything cleared through in just a few minutes. So, don't get too frightened if you see a long line there. It moves.
What are some of the issues with our airport that were brought up in that JD Power survey?
I think the biggest thing is something that Yakina had mentioned, which is that it's outdated. The report said that it's an old airport. Even like the CEO had said, it's age. It's 85 years old. So after all those years, you're going to need some necessary renovations to keep up with all the new technology and people coming through. Areas where you wait for your plane, they're too small. Oftentimes you see people waiting at the gate right next to theirs or far flung at a completely different gate because that's the only seat that's open. And same with the outlet issues. If you're relying on your phone for your boarding pass or updates on your flight, you want all your devices charged, but that's kind of difficult when nothing seems to work.
Okay. What's the deal with the food these days at PHL? There's been some upgrades, right?
Yeah, these are one of the things that the airport has been working on for the better. There's some really big names in Philly's food world that now have locations inside the terminals. Federal Donuts and Chicken, Oyster House, Elixir Coffee, Insomnia Cookies, Middle Child. These have all been added to PHL in the past 2 years. And this is part of their Founded in Philly initiative to bring in more local vendors. So people whose go-to spot is Chick-fil-A, you might wonder where Chick-fil-A went, but that's one of the vendors that's being phased out in favor of bringing in more local food options.
I love that idea.
And speaking of food, you can skip the food lines. One of their other upgrades is to have a new mobile ordering. So you're cutting down on time trying to figure out where you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, how long it's going to take to get your order. You can just do everything from your phone and have that ready to pick up. So just making that more of a smooth experience when you're just trying to get to and from where you need to go.
Okay, so how are people feeling about the food options at the airport?
Michelle from Haddon Township in New Jersey loves it. She said she wholeheartedly disagreed with PHL being ranked the worst and highlighted dining as the reason why. She said, the dining is actually great. Having La Colombe and Chickies in multiple terminals. La Colombe in Terminal B even has acai bowls that have me terminal hop to get there. And
I like that terminal hop just for the food.
hey, might as well.
Right.
I might need to terminal hop to Oyster House next time.
I know.
On the topic of Chickies and Pete's, Michelle said that they have some fairly rare beer around certain time of the year and have long tenured, really nice bartenders there. So that kind of helps build the case that it's actually one of the better airports.
I love that. Siani, what's your experience like? Are you like, you said that you show up at the airport like hours ahead of your scheduled flight. Do you have time to like sit down and enjoy some food, or do you like the kind of like grab and go options?
I'm definitely more of a grab and go. I with like Michelle La Colombe is usually my go-to spot. I typically fly early, so I need to start my day with breakfast. I'm a person where breakfast is not real until I have an egg. So I'll probably get like a breakfast sandwich from La Colombe, and that is like easy spot to just like grab my stuff, head over to my gate, make sure it's real, and just kind of chill and relax for the rest of the time.
I like that initiative founded in Philly. And another amazing thing in the city is our art. There's great rotating art at the airport. Some stuff to look at as you're walking around. I remember the free library used to have like an installation where you can like push a button and like poetry would be printed out. And you could like kind of read that, kind of calm your nerves if you're kind of one of those like nervous travelers.
I love the interactive elements because airports can be a very liminal space. You're just in between, and it's just designed as very utility and sterile. So having the pops of color, I think, really just brightens up your trip and also demonstrates why we're the mural capital of the world. Michelle had talked about the art at PHL installation, saying, "The art and sports installations are selfie worthy. I spent too much time with the Eagles one near the D connector." And she added, "In any case, I'm actually a fan of PHL, so that sparked me to write this early AM rant/novel."
And we now have a Rocky statue at the airport. So it's just like a perfect way to kind of like usher travelers into Philly. Like, there's Rocky.
But we also get to see a little bit more about what makes up Philly. Some of my favorite pieces that are there is Megan Turbitt's Overheard in Philadelphia. You might recognize the Overheard series as it's been featured in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And it's just kind of doodles of different eavesdrop conversations in Philly, from Chinatown to the Reading Terminal Market, all these like out of context, just joyful little bits of conversations that you suddenly became part of. And there's Justine Kelly's My Neighborhood in Terminal D, which depicts a colorful scene of Bella Vista with all the different food vendors and different cultures represented. And I think that's a nice break from the Rocky cheesesteak imagery that's typical of Philadelphia, because kind of zooming into these different neighborhoods and who makes it up, that's really what Philly's about. So it's nice to be able to share that with people visiting for the first time.
Well, Siani, can we like both agree that we're not all traveling in the same experience at the airport? Air travel, to me, it's like about hierarchy. Like, if you are able to pay for those lounges, you're going to get treated like royalty. But if you can't, you're going to be juggling the water bottles, having no place to sit. There is a new Chase Sapphire Lounge. It's 20,000 square feet, free cheesesteaks, a retro arcade, a beer garden. Like,
sure.
like
what's one more?
Right. How about this? Elixir coffee and free facials.
Okay, that last one might get me.
Oh, wait,
it might get me a fair.
Actually, wait. Does this get you? There's showers and play areas for the kids.
Okay, but not everything in life is free.
I'm not showering at the airport. I don't know. It depends. The catch is that it's only accessible to select Chase bank card holders, right?
Of course. Okay. I think on one hand, that might be beneficial if you have a really long layover. But on the other hand, with airports already expensive as is, and then you have the trip itself that you're going to, I'd rather just save my money for the actual thing I'm traveling to rather than this lounge at the airport.
All right, we've got more conversations about the airport when we come back. All right, let's talk about how to get out of the airport. Do you take Uber, Lyft, taxi, or do you get a ride home?
Oh man, most of the time coming back to Philly, it's kind of late. So we wind up just ordering a Lyft. But even then, that is such a mess with drivers losing you and then take the wrong turn. So you have to wait even longer for them to come back around to the rideshare zone. And then they get frustrated and cancel on you. That has happened on multiple occasions.
Right. That's the worst. That's the worst where you're like, let's say it's like 8 minutes and then the app like changes drivers and it's like another 7. It's another like 9 minutes. It's so crazy.
Like, I know you're still here. I know you did not leave this airport complex. So come back. And this was something that came up a lot for some of our readers, the transportation. We got a note from Teresa, who's disabled, and said that wheelchair service at the airport was good and the shopping excellent, but ground transportation home was a nightmare and needed to wind up calling someone to get a ride for a family member. And Mark from Philly said if people are picking you up, the cell phone parking lot is impossible. Once you're in it, it can take an hour to get back out. And that explains why people park illegally on the bridge.
I wish, though, you know what I wish? I wish, like, when you're crossing, like, the streets, that there were maybe, like, more flashing, like, pedestrian safety measures. That would be something I would like.
My worst Lyft experience was coming back home from the airport with a driver whose foot was a little too heavy on the gas pedal. And before we even left the airport, he almost hit someone.
Ooh.
Which like goes to show like there needs to be more pedestrian safety measures at the airport, and maybe better Lyft drivers. So lots of things that can be done better.
Yeah, that's hard to manage. Okay. What are some other options for getting out of the airport?
So depending on the time of day, I would recommend the Regional Rails airport line. It, stops at every terminal and goes through the city and usually runs around every 30 minutes. The downside is that because of SEPTA's funding cuts and safety inspections, as we're well aware, delays and overcrowding can be an issue. So I'd say give yourself, ample time if you're going to and from. At least if you're coming from the airport, it's just the airport passengers, so you haven't gone through all the center city commuters yet. And you can get in if it's the reverse where you're trying to get to the airport. It might be hit or miss, but at least you are saving some money by taking, SEPTA, which it's fair with the SEPTA key. That's usually around $8.75, and that's based on distance versus an Uber or Lyft that can cost you $70, maybe on a good day, from the airport to your house.
One thing I've done before is I've actually like parked my car and left it at the airport. That was super convenient. And it just kind of took away the stress. And then I came back. Car's there, thank God. Nothing crazy. And you pay and you just go home, hit 95.
Exactly. The PHL Park Reserve, like that already guarantees the parking for you. You can plan it ahead, and there's a shuttle to and from the economy lot. So those are already some things squared away for you if you decide to just drive. But if you really want to stick to ride shares or cabs, again, remember the prices can fluctuate. And if you just want to go the traditional route with a taxi, you can use the Curb app to request and pay for taxis, kind of similarly to Lyft. Or you can just call your preferred cab company like 215 Get a Cab or Phila Taxi Cab Service.
Okay, what can PHL do better?
So despite how much we've been punching down on PHL, they do hear us. They know there are things that can be done better, and they're working on it. They are spending $500 million on 50 different projects to upgrade the airport ahead of 2026. And American Airlines is also helping fund this. And these projects have been ongoing throughout the whole year and are set to be done by the end of it. So you might have seen some of this already, but others will still be finished in the early months of next year. Some of these projects include new exits and murals at Terminals D and E, added signs in the airport and surrounding roads, making sure we know exactly where we're going. 16 new renovated bathrooms.
Thank God!
Now we just need to upkeep them with the cleanliness.
Right, that's right.
New carpets and seating in the waiting areas, since we talk about how hard it's to get a seat. And PHL also released some new branding and a slogan back in September saying, "Good things start here."
I like that. There's been some changes at TSA, right?
Absolutely. One of the big things is Real ID. We know for a few years now that kept getting pushed back and back, but it's officially been implemented. If you're not familiar with Real ID, it's required to board domestic flights and enter certain federal facilities. So when you update your state ID or driver's license, if you opt for a Real ID, you'll have like this little golden star that indicates that that's a Real ID and you got cleared for that. If you don't have a Real ID to get through for your flight, you can use other forms of identification, such as a passport. If you don't have any of this accepted identification, you can pay $45 to use TSA Confirm ID for a 10-day travel period. So despite all the brouhaha about you needing to get Real ID and pushing back the deadline for years, they're like, oh, just pay $45 and you're good.
Hold on, can I demonstrate? Siani, what I had to do to get this freaking Real ID is beyond, okay? Now you tell me.
Like, we've seen there were so many lines outside of PennDOT that people who had like regular things they needed were like stuck behind all the Real ID people before the deadline.
Listen,
and now here we are.
Let me tell you, okay? This is a tip. This is a hack. If you are in need of a Real ID like today, go to the Real ID place up in KOP and go like Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe Thursday. The lines are like shorter. Go in the morning if possible. Don't go to a PennDOT place like in the neighborhood. I went to the one around the neighborhood and they're like, yeah, we'll give it to you in like 15 business days. I'm like, oh, no. I need that thing now.
You needed it yesterday.
Go to KOP, it's closest to us. My God. I know. And then people are like, well, should I get your passport? Okay. My passport expired.
Oh, I personally, I used a Real ID because I am like fearful of potentially losing my passport. Maybe I'd rather lose my ID than my passport. Knock on wood, none of that happens.
My gosh.
But in the end, I think it's just great to have multiple forms of identification for whatever situation. So, if you get the Real ID, get your passport, or fork over $45 if you don't want to do any of that.
One thing I'm great that we don't have to do anymore, take off our shoes.
Yes. I think that's one of the things that's helping cut down on the lines is taking the shoes off. You don't have to do that anymore. Keep them on. You still got to go through the same procedure of, taking the belt off and all that. But just know if you've been a while since you traveled, shoes stay on. Another thing that might be new is facial recognition.
What do you mean, Siani?
So this is being used at TSA checkpoints, just verifying your identity and who you are as you pass through. TSA claims that this won't be used for surveillance and that they just use the facial recognition for the checkpoint and then that will be deleted. And this is something that you can opt out of. which some people have because some concerns that have been brought up. The Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board had key members fired under the Trump administration. So people are worried about the privacy concerns. And also TSA is under the Department of Homeland Security. So even if they say they're not using this for surveillance now, that doesn't mean that policy can't change. So that's something to keep in mind when you're traveling, just like knowing what rights that you have and, your privacy as a private citizen.
Siani, is it true that PHL doesn't have Clear, which is another identity verification service that people can get? And it basically like speeds up your process of getting through like airport security.
Yeah, so at the moment, PHL doesn't have Clear, which is a private service that's using your biometrics to speed up the ID check line. But PHL does have TSA PreCheck, which is a faster physical screening, like, again, keeping your laptops on, you're not taking certain things out your bag. And that is available at Terminals A East, C, and DE for eligible passengers, depending on your airline. But it's a pretty fair amount of airlines that accept this. I will say, though, in my experience, I feel like I've gone through the regular TSA line faster than the people I see who are in line for PreCheck. Maybe PreCheck makes more sense if you're a frequent flyer or just really need to get where you need to go very quickly. But it's just, again, this is just another added expense that I feel like if you have the time, don't opt into it because I think I get through faster. There's more people in line for PreCheck than there are people in the regular TSA line. You just move the line over to a different spot.
Okay. Let's think big now. In an ideal world, Siani, what would be like your dream list items for PHL Airport? Any places around the country, around the world that maybe we could steal an idea from?
You mean aside from more people working in the control tower? That's my first item. Right. I would say I haven't. Most of my flights have been to the same couple of airports. I will say when it comes to Charlotte's airport, where I've gone a bit for layovers, someone is there playing the piano. And I think that's just like really sweet as you're passing through, just having live music, someone showing off their musical talent. So that's nice to just kind of get away from the typical sounds and hustle and bustle of an airport and just like sit and watch a performance for a little bit.
Yeah, that would be nice. I think, so like sometimes there's like Elvis impersonators at the Vegas airport. And so what if there were like Rocky impersonators greeting travelers or entertaining them? Or there was like a No, you don't want that?
Listen, Rocky may or may not have done a lot for this city, but I think we need to reel it back just a little bit.
Well, what do you want? You want Ben Franklin up there?
The real question, can any of them sing? Let's add a little pizzazz to this performance.
Well, I don't know if that's accurate to history.
We'll turn it into Hamilton.
Even though Rocky is not a real person.
Hamilton. We're just gonna recreate that at the airport. Don't go to Broadway.
Although, Philly, we have we had this like program where like music artists, local talent was performing at like select hotels. I feel like let's get some artists. We already have like, the visual art. Let's get some music artists up in the airport.
I definitely love that idea. I also like, I personally haven't been to this airport, but I've seen pictures. Portland's airport seems very beautiful with just real life like plants and trees. Ooh. Just enough greenery that it makes a place feel alive and less stuffy of like I'm just in this box. And they have some like bike paths, so it just seems very accessible. So I really do like that design. Just let's make it feel a little bit more natural. What about you? Is there any other items on your wish list?
I like the train system at the Atlanta airport. I wish there was like a subway or like just a faster experience like through the airport or from like the airport to like Center City, or just a little bit fast, like pick up the speed a little bit. I feel like the regional rail's like a little slower and just chugging along.
I like the pace. Maybe it's better like when you're coming back home because like you're tired from travel, want to chill. At
Okay.
Detroit's airport, they have a bus that's just like a few bucks. So it was pretty cheap. That took you from the airport directly to like their downtown area. And conveniently enough, it was like the bus pulls in directly to the hotel, like right in front of the hotel I was staying at. So that made my experience better. But it was a pretty good trip and lots of room. So, you can debate whether a train or a bus is faster. You see a little bit more of the city when you're on the bus going through the roads. But I think, just having more transportation options is always better. So you're not forking over nearly $100 on rideshare.
Well, another thing that I saw that our airport is doing is expanding nonstop service to Europe on American Airlines, 19 destinations. There's new service to Budapest and Prague and Edinburgh and Milan. Where are you going, Siani?
I think the places that are on my bucket list, I would love to go to Spain and Portugal one day. Those are kind of like the biggest countries that I would love to see, and especially being on like the Portuguese coast would be really nice. But just remember, there's a lot of things happening next year in Philadelphia. So maybe you want to plan ahead for a future trip, but there's plenty of things to do here.
All right, Siani Colon, our newsletter editor, thanks for having this conversation about PHL Airport.
All right, safe travels, everybody.
That's all for us today here on CityCast Philly. If you got some opinions on your experience at PHL, let us know. Also, share this episode with someone who's traveling into Philly. Rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter so you can keep up to date on what else Philly is talking about. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.